It was midnight on June 6, 1944, and the sky over France was about to break open. Thousands of shadows drifted downward, parachutes blooming like dark flowers in the night. The soldiers couldn't see the ground, but they could feel the weight of history pressing on their backs. That day would be known as D-Day, the largest and riskiest invasion ever attempted. And although we remember it now as an inevitable triumph, in that moment, nothing was guaranteed. Not even that the soldiers would land in the right place. In fact, several ended up in barns, puddles, and even the backyard of a lady who just wanted to sleep. But how did the world arrive at that night? Who decided to launch this gigantic plan? And most importantly, how did they turn absolute chaos into a decisive victory? This is where the story begins. By late 1943, World War II was at its darkest point. The Allies needed to open a second front in Europe to stop the Nazi regime. But attacking France meant facing the infamous Atlantic Wall, the defensive line built by Germany from Norway to Spain. At the center of the Allied plan was Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander. A calm man, with the expression of someone who hadn't slept in weeks. And who could blame him? He was responsible for an operation involving more than 150,000 soldiers and 7,000 ships. Beside him were Bernard Montgomery in charge of ground strategy, Omar Bradley leading the American forces, Winston Churchill pushing to liberate Europe as soon as possible. On the German side, the man defending the coast was Erwin Rommel, the legendary Desert Fox. Rommel was sharp, fast, and dangerously capable. Basically the kind of person who ruins any attempt at a surprise. So the Allies chose the most human solution to a difficult problem. Outsmart the enemy and catch them off guard. It's all about strategy. In 1944, they launched Operation Fortitude, a massive deception campaign. They created a fake army with inflatable tanks, wooden planners, and radios transmitting imaginary conversations. They even placed the famous General George Patton in charge of an army that, well, didn't exist at all. The objective: convince Germany that the attack would hit Calais, not Normandy. And unbelievably, it worked. Rommel and the German High Command moved troops to the wrong place. Meanwhile, the Allies trained in secret for an attack that needed to be perfect, or at least functional enough. But there was an enemy even more unpredictable than Hitler: the weather. Violent storms hammered the English Channel. Eisenhower canceled the operation, then rescheduled it for June 6th after spotting a tiny window of good weather. The night before the landings, Eisenhower addressed the troops. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere marred with you. He headed back to his tent, feeling super anxious, and in silence, he wrote a letter accepting responsibility if everything went wrong. The world was about to change. The operation began shortly after midnight. At 0:15, thousands of paratroopers from the 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions jumped into total darkness. Many landed where they were supposed to. Others ended up in swamps, rooftops, cows, chicken coops, and one, somehow, on top of a church bell tower. It was D-Day, but the landing felt more like D. Where am I? At 3 a.m., Allied bombers targeted German positions. Unfortunately, the fog was so thick that many missed their targets. Let's just say it wasn't their most accurate morning. And then came the defining moment, the part that shapes history. The moment the Allies has been waiting for. 6:30 a.m., the landings begin. The 5 assigned beaches were Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, Sword, at Utah. Strong currents pushed the troops nearly 2 kilometers off course. For anyone else, it would have been a disaster. But it turned out that the new landing point wasn't well protected. General Theodore Roosevelt Jr. delivered the legendary line, "We'll start the war from right here." Yes, he said it while walking with a cane and battling arthritis. But anyways, massive respect for him. At Omaha, things were completely different. German General Friedrich Dollmann had strengthened the defenses with bunkers, machine gun nests, and heavy artillery. When the Americans stepped off their landing craft, they walked straight into hell. Bullets everywhere! Explosions! Smoke! And soldiers running like someone was offering free passes to skip university assignments. By 7:30 a.m., Omaha looked like it might fail. Chaos everywhere, officers dead, troops pinned down, boats destroyed. But small groups began pushing forward through ditches, craters, and gaps in the sand. Acts of desperation and bravery at the same time. Meanwhile, the Rangers, led by James Reuter, climbed the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc using ropes and ladders under enemy fire. The Germans couldn't believe what they were seeing. Literally soilagers scaling vertical walls. At Juno, the Canadians fought fiercely, advancing farther inland than any other group that day. At Golden Sword, the British met strong resistance, but managed to secure their positions. By noon, after hours of terror, confusion, and courage, the Allies had finally secured beachheads across all zones. D-Day was working. With the beaches held, the next phase began. Push inland. The main objective was Caen, a crucial strategic city. German forces, including elite Waffen-SS divisions, fought relentlessly. The battle for Caen lasted from June 6 to July 19. Meanwhile, on July 25th, the Americans launched Operation Cobra, breaking the German lines decisively. Rommel, one of the few leaders capable of slowing the Allies, was wounded in an air attack on July 17th and couldn't continue. With the German front collapsing, the Allies advanced rapidly. In August, they encircled the German 7th Army in the Falaise pocket, wiping out much of its strength. On August 25, 1944, Paris was liberated. Europe could finally breathe again. D-Day wasn't the end of the war, but it was the point of no return for the Nazi regime. D-Day proves that the largest operations depend on thousands of small human decisions. Planning, cooperation, sacrifice, and a dose of collective courage change the course of the world. Sometimes we face challenges that seem impossible. But like in Normandy, moving forward with fear is still moving forward. And sometimes, what begins as absolute chaos becomes our most defining moment. Because history isn't just what happened, it's what it still teaches us. Thanks for watching, and catch you in the next video.